So it's almost 2025, and this is the year that you want to set yourself up for success on your farm and start your farm. Okay, you've been talking about this a long time. You literally already bought the land, and you're just sitting here waiting to start your farm. But it's scared. It's scary. You're intimidated because it's so much to start your own farm. Well, this is the video for you. I am going to walk through some things I wish I would have thought through and considered before starting my own farm, all the things that I would be doing if I was starting my farm in 2025. But before we get into all that, this video is going to be operating on the basis that you already have some land and some space that you're dedicating to farming. So if you don't have that, and 2025 is really the year that you want to buy a farm, you can check out my video on finding cheap land, which I will link below. And hopefully we can get that sorted out for you, give you some solutions on how to even get your land to get started farming. Now, if you already got your land, woohoo, you're at the right video. But before we get into it, give me a like, thumbs up, subscribe, and tell all your neighbors about me because I'm a damn delight. Oh, did I just cuss? I didn't mean to cuss. All right, so before we get into it, the number one thing is goal planning. That's right. 2025, new year, new resolutions, new goals, and that's what we're doing. So yes, goal planning, okay? So if I were starting a farm from scratch, I would be identifying why and what I'm hoping to get out of it, okay? Those are key components. Key, all right? So for me, I have a farm. It's more of a subsistent farm, right? So I have vegetable gardens where I produce a lot of my own vegetables. I just planted a full orchard, which I'm hoping to produce lots of my own fruit. I have lamb, grass-fed lamb. I have a dairy cow, Miss Mabel. I have goats, and the goats really don't do anything except look cute, fluffy, and adorable. They're fanny goats. They bring me joy, okay? And then I also have more of that enterprise side where I grow specific types of items that I could potentially sell. So for example, for several years, I have grown cut flowers that I sell at farmers market, CSAs, florists, etc. I haven't done that in the past few years, but something I might be getting back into. So you need to identify though, is your farm going to be a farm that you're hoping to produce food from and feed your family from, and that's your focus? Or is it going to be something that's supposed to drive revenue and be an enterprise and hopefully build wealth for your family? Or are you wanting it to be something kind of in the middle, in between, right? So those are the things that you need to consider, and that is going to help decide a lot about what you're going to do with your designated space. For example, one dairy cow, it might not be the best revenue driver for your farm unless you're planning on doing some sort of dairy share and selling dairy shares. That could be a great way. You can produce lots of your own food and sell the surplus and excess. That's a great way to meet in the middle. But if you're wanting to really do a business and focus in on something, that's what I'd recommend doing. If you're building a business, you need to focus in, niche down, get really, really, really good at it, establish your market, and go for it. You don't need to have your hands in like all these different areas, diversifying yourself hugely at first, because you need to be focusing on getting good at something quickly. So it's going to really determine what you're wanting to do, whether you're wanting to start a farm to make money, or if you're wanting to start a farm to grow and produce your own food, or if you want to do something kind of in the middle. I'm kind of in the middle, right? So for me, I want this farm to produce lots of my own food, but I also want it to add to my quality of life by producing income. So that brings me to my next point on choosing something that fits your space. So like I said, if you already have your own space, then we are in a good position to figure out where we go, right? Because you need to know what you can do with your allocated space. For example, if you have a quarter of an acre and your goal is to maybe have a grass-fed beef production, it's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. You can't do that on a quarter of an acre, right? So you aren't going to be able to do that. But maybe you could raise meat rabbits. Maybe you could raise chickens, pastured poultry. You could absolutely have a market garden, produce vegetables and fruits for your family. There are so many options. And I don't know what's going on with my mustache, but it's driving me crazy right now. It's like tickling my nose. I don't like that. Maybe I should edit this out of the video, but I'm not gonna. So your space is going to determine what you can do, right? If you want to be a gigantic row cropper, you're going to need loads and loads of acres, hundreds of acres, right? You're not going to do that on a quarter of an acre. All right. But if you're wanting to focus and grow your own food, you could do that in literally 100 square foot footprint. So it just really depends on your goals. And there is something that is able for everyone can do something. If they're wanting to start a business, for example, there's a microgreen business that uses a shipping container, literally smaller than my house, produces more money than I make all year long in that little tiny shipping container than I do on this 26-acre farm. So size doesn't matter, folks. You heard it here first. All right. That brings me into the next point, is establishing your niche and your market within the agricultural industry. So if you are wanting to start a business, then this is key. If you're wanting to produce your own food for homesteading purposes, it's really not as important, right? But if you're trying to build out a business, you need to niche down and figure out where you can fill a need in your community. So I would go to farmers markets, I would talk to people, talk about what there is available, see what's available, and then cross-reference that. So literally take a column for your goals and take a column for what is doable on your property, as well as a column for areas of interest in your community. So just kind of check, 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 check. And if all of those can line up, then you have honed in on something that you should be doing for your farm. So, for example, maybe you go to the farmer's market and no one is selling grass-fed beef there, and you have 40 acres and you're like, I could get into that. I could absolutely do that. That's where you start, and that is the market that you try and fulfill. For me, it was cut flowers. Everyone was growing market gardens, so they were producing loads and loads of vegetables. No one was producing flowers in my area yet, so I swooped in and I started producing flowers. Then all those market gardeners started producing flowers too, and I was like, back off, this is my turf, little homie. And that's just how it goes. But that is what gave me my foot into my market with my farm. And you start with something like that and you build from it, okay? So everyone will talk about farm diversification, which is another critical component if you want to build out a farm. But you don't want to diversify too quickly or too soon. So the thing with diversification is it makes complete sense to diversify when you have something established. But if you start out trying to diversify, so you've got like 10 different business ventures at that point, because remember, producing pork is not the same as producing beef. Producing cut flowers is not the same as growing market vegetables, okay? So diversification is completely fine, but you need to make sure you're doing one thing really, really well to establish your customers, retain your customers, and outperform all of your competitors. So you need to focus on that first. So that could be cut flowers, or maybe you start with pastured poultry. And then you work on what could utilize similar systems that you have in place. So you have those efficiencies there. And then you build on top of that on what your customer base would also potentially purchase from you. So for example, those market gardeners that were deciding to go grow cut flowers are an excellent example of how you can diversify. So here's me going to the market, getting my foot in the market with a cut flower farm. Amazing, great. And then here's all these market garden stalls with loads and loads of vegetables, no flowers. Well, next season, what they did is they went in and they planted a couple rows of flowers so that they could have a few bouquets with their market garden stand. And they would sell those bouquets. And the thing is, they had all the same infrastructure, and they were just adding a little skill set, a little knowledge as they went, and they worked and operated out of similar infrastructure, and it diversified their farm offerings and it diversified their products. Brilliant, and that's an excellent thing that you already should be considering. So when you select a niche, you need to consider, how can I diversify from this niche? And then go forward with that plan, but focus on one small niche item first. One niche product, and then we will scale from there. So it's also a great thing to consider is if you have any kind of educational background or property like this, can you host workshops? Can you potentially do on-site things? Agritourism is a booming industry. Even in a backyard, you could teach classes around growing your own vegetables. So it's an excellent thing to consider for planning and a great way to help drive revenue if your goal is to drive revenue. And that brings me back to if you want to be like a subsistent farmer or homesteader, consume information. Same with the business, consume information. And I'm not saying doom scroll on TikTok. I mean, you can absolutely doom scroll on my YouTube channel, which brings me to the part where I tell you to like, subscribe, and comment below with your farm dreams in 2024. But my point is absorb as much information as you can, be as educated as you can on starting a farm and different areas of growing vegetables and food and what you need to do. And that will really help you get established because honestly, all of this is just a skill set that you have to learn. And it's going to be hard to just book learn it. You've got to jump in. But having the book learning is going to help you. Okay. And that brings me to my last little point, time. So time is a huge factor here, and it's really, really challenging to run a farm because it takes a lot of time. So choose enterprises and areas that make sense for your time. So for example, for me, in my small subsistent farming type model, I have a lot of grass-fed animals. They actually don't take that much time because I rotate them through pastures and I have ample space, right? So I'm not constantly feeding them a lot of feed. I have water systems set up so that they have water plentifully access. Like it's really, really easy, streamlined for me. And that's really important when you're setting up your farm is figuring out how do you make things efficient and streamlined and easy for you. So that's my biggest suggestion is figuring out how you do that. Grass-fed animals are a great way to make things kind of more efficient. You know, if you have something that's literally just in a barn that needs feed every day, you're going to have to go out there every single day, check on them every single day. I check on my guys every single day, but I don't have to. I can just peek out in the pasture. Oh, Maybell's good. We're good. So I don't have to worry about her today. If I need to see her tomorrow, cool. But she's also a dairy animal, which means milking morning and night. Not cool. That takes a lot of time. So it just really depends. You have to choose what fits your time and schedule. Livestock, if you're incredibly busy, probably is not the way to go, as plants are a little more forgiving, a little more flexible, and they don't tend to run away or get out. So definitely consider time. And of course, last but not least, your infrastructure, right? So fencing is incredibly expensive, creating paddocks and cages and etc. for livestock, also very time consuming and very expensive. So analyze the infrastructure on your current property to help you make a good solid decision, and then really kind of know what investment you're going to have to make in your farm and determine if it's worth it to you, right? So think about it. If you have to spend 20 grand to set up raised beds in your garden, it's probably not worth it. You can probably grow lots of vegetables for way, way cheaper than that. So really weigh, is this an aesthetic vision or a practical vision? Because the whole goal here is to keep things nice and cheap and economical if you're producing your own food or produce lots of revenue. So until next time, hope y'all follow along, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you're planning on doing in 2025 on your farm, and I'll see y'all next time.